Penn State keeps pace with undefeated Oregon, number one Oregon, and the undefeated Indiana Hoosiers. Of course, the Buckeyes survive a scare. They stay within a game. The entire Big Ten weekend recap and what I think about it is coming up next. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com and get started. 3 undefeateds keeping pace. The final chase going into the final month of the season. Plus the Penn State quarterback situation. And they got a big one coming up. Plus our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. Hang on for that. But before we do anything, let's start with the latest AP Top 25 polls that came out on Sunday. Of course, Oregon still number 1, Georgia number 2, Penn State and Ohio State 3-4. Miami cracks the top 5. The Indiana Hoosiers at 8-0, no respect, still at 13, not moving up. And Illinois falls to 24 after their loss to Oregon. So those are the teams of the Big Ten that are in the top 25. So let's talk about how we got there. Illinois was ranked 20th. They went into Oregon, and Oregon beat them soundly, 38-9. And, of course, Oregon remains the number 1 team in the nation. No problem. They played well on both sides of the ball in that Illinois game. And this was their first home game in front of their fans as the number 1 team from when the ratings came out a couple weeks ago. Then they hit the road. So it was a fun environment there on Saturday at Autzen Stadium. Dylan Gabriel threw 3 touchdowns. He had an interception, ran for a touchdown. Tez Johnson had 6 catches and 102 yards. The guy continues to be amazing. But what was most amazing overall is the Ducks offense. Keep in mind, Illinois' defense is pretty good. And the Ducks posted 527 yards of offense in that game. Also, career note, Gabriel moved in front of Timmy Chang for second place on the NCAA's career passing yards list. Case Keenum, if you're wondering, is number 1. Still about 2,000 more yards to go there. But as Gabriel says, I don't care about stats. I'm chasing wins. And that he is. They're 8-0. And the Ducks defense, they stifled an Illinois offense that and held them to under 300 yards of total offense in that game. Luke Altmaier hasn't looked great the past couple of games statistically. He threw 2 picks in this one. And then Illinois, one bright spot for them. Tyson Rooks had a nice interception in that game that I remember that. But Illinois drops to 6-2. Still a favorable schedule over the next 4 games. So Brett Bielema and company should still tally a nice win total before this is all said and done. As far as the number 1 Ducks, they hit the road to Ann Arbor and they take on Michigan. And they have 3 wins. Both of these teams, by the way, Illinois and Oregon, both have 3 wins already against ranked opponents. And, of course, the Ducks have won 8 straight since the first time since 2013. By the way, programming note right now, I'm going to tell you right now here on a Monday, we are going to go live on Locked On Big Ten on YouTube like we do every weekend. We're going to do it after the Michigan-Oregon game. So it's a 3:30 kickoff. That'll be over around 6:37 East Coast, around 4 o'clock-ish Pacific time. I mentioned that because there's a big game earlier. There's Ohio State, Penn State. That's followed by Oregon, Michigan. I want all those teams to have been done by the time we go live for you guys. Meanwhile, the Indiana Hoosiers are at 8-0. They beat Washington 31-17, staying perfect. Head coach Curt Cignetti is the first coach ever in Division I to start 8-0 back-to-back years with 2 different schools. He did it at James Madison last year as well. And they still have not trailed for a single minute yet this year. That's remarkable when you think about it. And they've won all 8 games by double figures. So they are rolling, but they don't move up in the polls. I'm going to be real curious to see how the College Football Playoff Committee ranks them when that poll comes out Tuesday, November 5th. So about another week or so we'll quit paying attention to the AP Top 25 and we'll start paying more attention to the college football playoff poll as it comes out each week. Also of note, Indiana played this game with a backup quarterback in Taven Jackson. Curtis Rourke has been hurt with the thumb. We think he's coming back this weekend against Michigan State, but the Hoosiers did not top 40 points for the first time all year. Still 31's pretty good with a backup quarterback. They did leave points on the field because of the change of quarterback, and it wasn't quite the same, but they did rely on their power running game. In fact, the Hoosiers only threw 5 passes in the second half and still pulled away in this one. Justice Elson ran 29 times for 123 yards and a touchdown. Also a great defensive effort by the Hoosiers. They're playing on both sides of the ball. D'Angelo Pons intercepted 2 passes, including a 65-yard pick six. Now the Huskies on the other side, they've lost 3 out of 4. They haven't won on the road, but shout out to Jonah Coleman, who had 19 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. He was hard to bring down by the Hoosier defense. And it also, the fact that the Hoosiers were able to put together huge, long drives, the Huskies only touched the ball 4 times in the second half. That's it. They had 4 drives in the second half. So they're undefeated. So with Oregon undefeated 8-0, Indiana undefeated 8-0, then there's Penn State now 7-0 after they won at Wisconsin. That was a tough game, by the way. 28-13 Saturday night at Wisconsin. Drew Aller, he hurt his left knee getting sacked late in the first half, limped off the field, went into the locker room. And by the way, they were trailing 10-7 at that point. It was a tough ball game. Came out for the second half. He had a huge brace on his left knee, was trying to land on it, throwing some warm-ups, and he just couldn't give it a go. James Franklin looked at him. He says, man, I want you to be as honest with me as you can. Don't be Mr. Tough Guy here. Can you do it or not? And he shook his head. He actually started tearing up a little bit. But don't shed too many tears for Penn State because of Bo Pribula is a backup quarterback that has a good amount of experience. And in some ways, they didn't miss a beat. He came in. I know that Aller told Pribula when he came in, he says, hey, man, don't let us down and go out there and hold it down. And he did. He held it down. So it was a pretty good situation. Led them to back-to-back scoring drives and a game that went back and forth at Camp Randall. Shout out to Jalen Reed, though. He intercepted Braden Locke for a 19-yard pick six. That gave the Nittany Lions the lead that they would never give up. In the back, no more back and forth. Penn State was able to win. That was a key play of the game right there. Aller isn't the only player banged up right now as they go to this big game against Ohio State next weekend. Defensive end Danny Dennis Sutton, he was injured. Offensive tackle Anthony Donka was injured. He left with an injury. So the timing of these injuries could not be worse. So they go 7-0, Penn State, trying to keep pace with Oregon and Indiana. And they got their biggest game of the year coming up on Saturday at home against Ohio State. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll be all over it right here on Locked On Big Ten. On the night, though, a couple of points to make about Penn State and how they're rolling. They're a complete team, no matter who's at quarterback. They won the rushing battle, 173 yards to 81. Katron Allen had 11 carries for 86 yards. Shout out to Wisconsin's Tawi Walker, giving it a go, but not quite his usual self because of the Penn State defense. 22 carries, 59 yards. By the way, the Badgers are 2-14 in their last 16 games against top 25 teams, 0-5 under Luke Fickell, who's still looking for his first marquee win with the Badgers in his second year. But, hey, all the focus is going to go on Penn State with that big game Saturday, hosting Ohio State with a ton on the line. All right, those are the undefeateds. We still got a lot of other action to talk about here. Get to that in a minute. But first, I want to ask you to subscribe, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. But if you can subscribe here on YouTube, that'd be great. You click the button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And then you and I are in the Big Ten loop every single day here, wherever you get your podcast. If you subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten, that way you'll get the latest episode of the podcast each and every morning that we send one out every day, Monday through Friday, and then we go live on the weekends. Also, invite you to check out our website, talkbig10.com. Christmas is coming. Get some Christmas shopping done with school gear. Get some Indiana shirts, Ohio State hats, Michigan pennants, all that right there at our website, along all of our podcasts that we archive about you for your favorite team right there, talkbig10.com. Check it out. All right, so Other stuff to cover from a very, very big week 9 around the Big Ten. Ohio State had a big scare against Nebraska. In fact, Nebraska led that game late. So we'll talk about that. And of course, there was a fight, the Michigan State game. There always is, it seems like, and that big rivalry. That's all coming up next, plus our top 10 Big Ten observations of the weekend. All that coming up right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel. We like watching sports, but they're even more fun when you got some action with FanDuel. You can tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game or check out some stats, live play-by-play information, all on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com and join today. And again, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Monday Night Football, Giants Steelers. I like the Steelers. -6. I don't see them losing this game. The Giants are broken. The Steelers look like they figured it out. And the number's at 36.5. I mean, last week, the Steelers went 37-15 on the Jets. If all of a sudden the new Russell Wilson offense is putting points up there, maybe I take the over there, 36.5. It's all at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe. Go ahead, just click it. That's it. Never worry about it again. Subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. Mention the Ohio State scare. They do win. They beat Nebraska 21-17. Honestly, the Buckeyes coming off a bye. So obviously upset about the Oregon loss. They were not great. They were not great on Saturday. Nebraska came in there and meant business. And Nebraska led the game in the fourth quarter. The horseshoe was a little quiet. People were nervous. Now, Ohio State's defense, it was good, but the running game never really got going. And I think you got to credit the Huskers defense for that. There were a few big key passing plays from Will Howard. That made the difference. That's how they got their 3 touchdowns. And he threw for 3 touchdowns. And then it was Jordan Hancock had that interception late, saving the day. A minute 16 left, and you could audibly hear the sigh of relief with the entire crowd there at Ohio State. Oh, they can exhale. All right, exhale. We're gonna win this game. I mentioned the big passing plays. Who else? Jeremiah Smith, 60-yard touchdown in this game. It was his 8th touchdown that ties an Ohio State freshman record. Chris Carter had 8. So one more, he'll have the freshman record. And he's still got a lot of games to get it done. I think he'll get it done. Some bad things for the Buckeyes that they need to sharpen up. 10 third downs, they converted 1 of 10. They had to punt 5 times. How often do you see Ohio State punt 5 times in a game? They gave up the ball on downs and they missed a field goal. It was not good. It was not sharp. It was not crisp. I would have thought here in the middle of the season, coming off a bye, they would have been sharper than that. Now, they got a little bit of a problem on the offensive line. Josh Simmons, the left tackle, got hurt in the Oregon game, and he's out for the year. And his replacement got hurt in this game. Now they're moving guards over to tackles, and they got to figure stuff out this week. So both Ohio State and Penn State are thin in some positions here all of a sudden going into this big game. And the Huskers, I give them credit for hanging on at Ohio State and making it a close game, because they got crushed in Bloomington the week before, 56-7. And they're stuck on 5 wins. The Huskers got to get this 6th win in the last month so they can become bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. They've got a bad streak against ranked teams. They've lost 27 straight against top 25 teams and 18 straight against ranked opponents on the road. All right. Big rivalry game this weekend. Michigan State at Michigan. You know what? Michigan won the game. They keep the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Michigan State should have won this game. They won everywhere but on the scoreboard, if you want to be honest. I mean, they started out on fire. Michigan State did. But they couldn't cash it in. I guess we'll give Michigan some credit there, but Michigan State ran 23 plays from scrimmage in the first quarter. Michigan ran 4. Of those 23, 10 of them were inside the red zone. This is just the first quarter. And in fact, on the first drive for the Spartans, they marched 14 plays down to the 2-yard line. Then they had to delay a game. And then their kicker, Jonathan Kim, who made a school record 6 field goals versus Iowa last week, missed the easiest field goal of his career. Just shanked it from like 23 yards out. Now, the Spartans eventually did score on a 9-play drive. Nathan Carter had a good game. He punched it into the end zone on a 4th and goal for the 2-yard line. Take a 7-0 lead for the Spartans. He had 19 carries, 118 yards, also 2 catches of 56 yards. He was great. He was great for the Spartans. So here's the deal, 7-0. And then Sherrone Moore switched quarterbacks again. He's had 3 different starting quarterbacks. He went back to the first one, Davis Warren. And so that's how they started things out in this game. Michigan did not cross the 50 until 1:26 remained in the half. But that's when things got a little weird. Got a little freaky out there. Davis Warren started making some nice passes. Donovan Edwards started making some nice runs. Davis Warren threw a touchdown pass to Colson Loveland with 29 seconds to go in the half, and he was wide open. It was a completely botched assignment by the secondary for Michigan State. However, Michigan botched the snap on the extra point. They threw an interception in the end zone. They don't get anything. It's 7-6. We think, all right, we're going to the half. We're going to the locker room. We're going into halftime, 7-6. But then after the kickoff, Michigan State ran a play for scrimmage. Got a nice play. They got 14 yards on it. All right, 29 seconds to go. They're moving the ball. Let's now, instead of just taking a knee and going to the locker room, let's see if we can get a little something going here, kick a field goal instead of taking the knee. Then Aiden Childs rolls out to the right, and he never saw or heard Josiah Stewart coming around from his blind side, strip sack, ball comes loose. Michigan gets it with 12 seconds to go on the 34-yard line. Davis Warren with a quick little pass to Donovan Edwards to get to the 20. Boom. 37-yard field goal. So Michigan, right at the end of the half, a touchdown and a field goal, and it's Michigan that takes a 9-7 lead into the half instead of Michigan State leading. And by the way, Davis Warren, not a lot of yards, but a lot of completions. 10 out of 11 in the first half for 79 yards. Pretty good. Now, Michigan got the ball in the second half. They then put together, now they got momentum. They put together an 11-play, 75-yard drive. Alex Orji now comes into the game to keep the soap opera going. Nice 29-yard change of pace run. That's how he was used last year. Change of pace quarterback with J.J. McCarthy. And suddenly he comes back in at the end of the drive for a 3rd and goal, and he scores a 2-yard touchdown. So Orji getting in on the action. And now Michigan's up 16-7 with 9 minutes to go in the third. Spartans field goal makes it 16-10. Donovan Edwards on the next drive took a pitch and then threw a 23-yard touchdown pass to Colson Loveland. Loveland's second touchdown of the game. We've seen Donovan Edwards throw this play before, but Michigan State act like they never seen it before. 2-point conversion to Colson Loveland was good. So he had 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion, and now all of a sudden Michigan's up 24-10 early in the fourth quarter. To Michigan State's credit, Aiden Childs finds freshman Nick Marsh for a 20-yard touchdown. 13-play, 75-yard drive. That was impressive. 7-minute drive. Now it's a 1-score game again. Michigan State's not going away. Michigan's still up, though, 24-17, 6 minutes to go. But that would be it. And that would end up being the final score. And then Alex Orji comes in for some power running. He was their leading rusher on the day, believe it or not. 6 carries at 64 yards, including a couple of carries at the end to keep the chains moving and burn out the clock. Paul Bunyan Trophy stays in Ann Arbor, and then the fight breaks out. Colson Loveland gets mixed up with the defensive end, Anthony Jones, and then all of a sudden, everybody. Just another typical Michigan State game. All right, Michigan, number 1, Oregon, coming up next week. Michigan State gets Indiana. Both these teams with tough games coming up. Iowa scored 40 again to beat Northwestern, 40-14. Exploded with 28 points in the fourth quarter to win this game. And Caleb Johnson, it was a third quarter. Anyway, they had a 28-point quarter in the second half. Caleb Johnson rushed for 109 yards with 3 touchdowns, including a 41-yard score. He's got 6 100-yard games this year, 16 rushing touchdowns this year, and Cade McNamara threw a pick 6. So they finally benched him. Brandon Sullivan came in, added a rushing touchdown, made a key block downfield. I don't know if you want your quarterback doing it, but at Iowa, that's what you do. Nice block on another touchdown. And the Hawkeyes have hit the 40-point mark 3 times this year. Pretty impressive. Got a couple interceptions from Jay Higgins and Quinn Schulte. Now, the Iowa defense threw a shutout. You may be going, well, wait a minute. Northwestern scored 14 points. They had an 85-yard pick 6 by Thran Johnson, and they had a 72-yard punt return for a touchdown by Drew Wagner. That's it. Their offense did not score, but special teams and defense did. Interesting ball game. Also, Minnesota beat up on Maryland 48-23. Row the boat, everybody. Max Brosmer starting to feel it a little bit. Season high 4 touchdown passes, 320 yards. No picks, no sacks. Clean game. Justin Wally had a 32-yard pick 6. Gophers scored 3 first-quarter touchdowns to jump ahead early. Maryland didn't know what hit them. Daniel Jackson, 9 catches, 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Elijah Spencer, 6 receptions for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Gophers have won 3 straight games. Congratulations. And by the way, let's talk about that Gopher defense because it's legit. They've allowed just 5 touchdown passes, and they've had 15 interceptions now this year. And Coy Parrish added an interception. He leads the Big Ten with 5. It's the most ever by a Minnesota freshman. He needs 2 more for the school record. Phenomenal. And finally, let's not forget Friday night. 2 struggling teams playing on Friday night. Rutgers at USC. First time they've ever played. USC won the game 42-20. Woody Marks had 3 touchdowns. Miller Moss threw for 308 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for another. And USC ended its 3-game skid, and it closed out a game, which they haven't been able to do. Mekhi Lemon had 4 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown as well. USC scored on its first 4 possessions. They meant business. They were clicking right away. Mekhi Lemon also had a touchdown and an 80-yard kick return in this game. USC's defense had 4 sacks. Now, as for Rutgers, Ethan Kaliak-Manis passed for 313 yards against the USC secondary that was missing 4 starters. Demir Miller had 11 catches, 131 yards in the loss. Kalman Ungai rushed for 86 yards on 18 carries. Now, Rutgers, a little concerned here. They started out 4-0. They've dropped 4 straight. And their defense got torched for 8.7 yards per play in this game. The Scarlet Knights have given up 119 points to Wisconsin, UCLA, and USC in their last 3 games. And otherwise, pretty good defense. There you have it. Entire week 9. From top to bottom, now we start focusing on week 10. I think we're going to start digging into this Ohio State Penn State game right away in tomorrow's podcast as well. We still have my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. I'll share them with you. We'll see if my list matches yours. That's next. Hang around for that right here on Locked On Big Ten. Game time. You want to go to a game? You need a ticket. You want to get a ticket? Go to the Game Time. Get the Game Time app right there on your device or your phone. It makes it so easy to get tickets to Big Ten football games. We got basketball starting, NBA, whatever you need. It's right there at Game Time. Couple of taps on your phone. You're good to go. All in pricing. No surprises at the very end. All that stuff. You also, with Game Time, got the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You find a better deal. You got the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And that's not just for sports, comedy shows, concerts, whatever you got going on. If you need a ticket, get the Game Time app and get the ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and a redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. If you're audio only, I'll describe in detail. We're going to put them up one at a time, kind of a reverse top 10 list in no particular order. These are just my top 10 observations from the weekend of Big Ten play, and we'll see if you agree or disagree with this list. All right, we're going to go full screen with it here. Going to start it off with a shout out to Northwestern, even though they lost to Iowa, but I thought it was worthy in their 40-14 loss. I just mentioned this a moment ago. No points on the offense. This was all special teams and defense. They had an 85-yard pick six, Theron Johnson, and a 72-yard punt return touchdown by Drew Wagner. Congratulations to them. That's something to build on, something positive. Meanwhile, number 9, again in a losing cause, Demir Miller. 11 catches, 131 yards at the Coliseum against USC. That's a big day, even though they lost. I wanted to mention it. They were taking on USC. On the other side, Makai Lemon, 4 grabs, 134, a touchdown, and an 80-yard kick return as well. So doing it all over. Iowa's Caleb Johnson. Again, another huge day. He rushed for 109 yards with 3 touchdowns, had the 41-yard score. 6 games this year with 100-yard games. Also 16 rushing touchdowns. Where would they be without him? They're struggling at quarterback. They just run the ball. Just run and score 40 points a game on the 3 of their 5 wins. They've scored 40 points. Minnesota's Max Brosmer. I want to give him a shout out. There's a lot of guys. I want to give a shout out to Minnesota and their win over Maryland. We'll start with the quarterback, Max Brosmer, who came from FCS football last year. 4 touchdowns, 320 yards, clean game there. Also, shout out to Justin Wally, 32-yard pick 6. Daniel Jackson for his 9 catches. Elijah Spencer, 6 catches, 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jackson also had 2 touchdowns. And that Gopher defense with 15 interceptions. As Coy Parrish had another interception to lead the Big Ten with 5. So I couldn't put all that in here in a top 10 list. So I just Minnesota in general. Congratulations. Michigan. Give a shout out to Josiah Stewart for that strip sack of Aiden Childs in the final minute of the first half. That changed the game. Childs never saw it coming, fumbled the ball. Michigan gets another 3 points for the half, and then they rolled. And also, as long as we're mentioning Michigan, again, too much happening to put all in a top 10 list. Colston Loveland, 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. That's pretty good. That's 14 points by himself right there. Also at number 5, D'Angelo Pons from the Indiana Hoosiers. 2 interceptions, including a 65-yard pick 6. I also want to give a shout out to Indiana running back Justice Ellison, who ran 29 times. You talk about an old school workhorse, 123 yards and a touchdown versus Washington. All this while Indiana did not have their starting quarterback. Everybody else stepped up. At number 3 on our list, Jordan Hancock from the Ohio State Buckeyes had the game-sealing interception against Nebraska with 1:16 to go. Should also give a shout-out to Jeremiah Smith for that 60-yard touchdown catch, his 8th of the year. These are all observations I thought were pretty mention-worthy here at the end of the podcast. At number 2, Penn State's Jalen Reed. I'm giving a lot of love to guys with interceptions on this list. He had a pick 6 of Braden Locke for a 19-yard touchdown, and that gave the Nittany Lions a lead they would not relinquish in what was otherwise a back-and-forth ball game at Camp Randall against Wisconsin. And number 1 observation of the weekend, just overall Oregon's offense, 527 yards of offense against what I think is a pretty decent, better than average, good defense by Illinois. Dylan Gabriel passing Tommy change for the second place NCAA career passing yardage list as well. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. Is my list any different than yours? Let me know in the comments. Be glad to check that out and give it a look. In the meantime, many ways for you to reach me. You can hit me up on Twitter at X at Talk Big Ten. Comments on YouTube. Comments on YouTube are great when rivals go at it. I better be hearing some Penn State and Ohio State trash talking going back and forth since those two are playing this weekend. That would be nice. We'll feature that game on tomorrow's podcast, among other things. And also, don't forget our website before you go, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there chronologically and group them by school as well. And also, we provide links there for you to buy merchandise, Christmas gifts for your favorite Big Ten fans out there. Go ahead and you can go buy something right there. It's really easy off of the link. In the meantime, share and follow. Spread the word of mouth. Tell a friend that's a Big Ten fan that we're out here every day. Just hit the little share arrow and send this podcast to them. I'm sure they'll be interested in it as well. But before you go ahead and subscribe. Thank you very much. All right. Can't wait to start turning the corner and talking week 12. That's next. Thanks for joining us here today. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.